Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. Today we do a deep dive into how some arrogant jackass that's completely obsessed with the letter X can somehow end up running an entire country. Well, let's be honest, he probably should be focusing on raising that army of kids he's created. But hey, who needs parenting when you've got billions of dollars, right? But yeah, no. We will not be doing that. Although there's bound to be a podcast out there that's willing to tackle that burning subject, but you're not going to get that crap here. Okay. So I got to admit, I am grateful that somebody, even if it is this guy, you know, the one obsessed with the letter X, with a bunch of rugrats, somebody finally rescued our astronauts. So at least there's that. Today we're going to talk about bourbon. And good news, I've got plenty to throw your way on this episode of the pod. And who knows, we might even learn something here in the process. No promises, though. Now, most folks would agree that Kentucky is the heart of bourbon country. But I say the whiskey world doesn't stop at state lines. More on that in a minute. Oh, and by the way, I need to give you my sincere apologies. It's totally my bad for being a couple days, actually several days late on this episode. I caught some kind of plague. Or as my wife tells me, it was just a regular cold. But either way, for a solid week, I was down and out. So tasting whiskey was about as appealing as licking the doorknob at the DMV, which, by the way, I had to go to the DMV and get my real ID. Now, that was a bunch of fun. So let me tell you about the real ID. This is amazing stuff. This is always stuck in my craw. So clearly what we needed after the 9/11 attacks was, more trips to the DMV, right? So Congress, in all its wisdom, they passed this little gem of a bill called the Real ID Act way back in 2005. Yes, it was so important and critical, we implemented it right away. 20 years ago, it's still not implemented. Yeah, so they decided that state-issued IDs just weren't cutting the mustard in the security department. So now, instead of the simple process of getting an ID, which was already a nightmare, we've got a super-duper federal security standards now, because nothing screams efficiency like the government, right? Anyway, states now have to verify documents like birth certificates, social security numbers, and you damn near have to give them a DNA sample before they hand you that little piece of plastic. So now, if you want to fly or enter a federal building or other such things, you'd better have your fancy new super-duper government-approved Real ID. Okay, I'm being a bit dramatic. It was actually a very easy process. I just find the whole idea of the Real ID pretty absurd. It's been 20 years. Come on, guys, give me a break. Anyway, it was super easy to set up an appointment here in Illinois. It only took about half an hour, even though some guy cut in front of me. So anyway, I've replaced my perfectly good state-issued ID, which I already had, with this newfangled government one. I guess it's just one more thing I got to keep track of, really. So, like I was saying before I got distracted, I'm back now after my bout with whatever crazy shit I had, and I appreciate your latitude, which, for those of you with infinity bottles, that translates to wiggle room or a generous pour of patience. Either way, I want to thank y'all. Listen, the last thing I wanted to do was try to analyze whiskey when I'm not at 100%. That would be foolish. And I'm highly allergic to foolishness. So I have close to 1 million things to touch on today, kids. So let's get after it. We've got a cool new concept for a bourbon bar in Florida. I've got new releases from Jack Daniel's, Woodford Reserve, and New Riff, and Diageo's Orphan barrel collection. I've got some gossip on Buffalo Trace. We're winning, kids. We're really winning. I've got some whiskeys on the way, stuff that's coming, but we don't know just when it'll be here. And finally, I review Still Austin the Musician, straight bourbon whiskey. Now, I've mentioned these dudes a while back here on the pod, actually a time or two. I finally pulled the trigger and picked some up to do it here on the pod. And I want to find out, do they have any good whiskey coming out of Texas? We're going to find out today. All right, whiskey freaks, let's talk about something cool happening down in the Sunshine State. And I don't mean Florida, man. I mean, there's a new bar in Florida called Whiskey Barrel. Pretty creative, right? Anyway, Whiskey Barrel, they just took over an old dive bar in Pensacola, Florida. And the dude that owns the place has completely transformed it. And we're talking full-on high-end sports bar vibes like leather couches, vintage wood furniture. And the part that caught my eye when I saw this pop up was a pour your own whiskey wall. Now, I've seen the beer walls where you pour your own. I've been to those. You get a wristband or something and they charge for the beer by the ounce. So you're able to try. Sometimes they've got dozens of beers you can try, and then you narrow down which one you like the most, and then you get your pours of that one, right? But I've never seen it here in a whiskey concept. Now, here's the fun part. You can actually taste the good stuff here at this guy's bar. The dude who runs the liquor, the dude who owns the place, he also owns a liquor store in the area. So that works well for him, I guess. And he set up a system where you load up a whiskey barrel card, then you walk up to the whiskey wall, just I guess like you would do with your wristband at a beer wall, and you pour as much or as little as you want. Now we're talking, you can get things like Pappy, E.H. Taylor, and Blanton's. The pours at this guy's place start at $5 and go up into the hundreds if you're feeling fancy. So it's the kind of setup that makes sense. Why chase unicorn bottles when you can just try them by the glass or the pour, right? Plus, this bar, if whiskey isn't your thing, okay, let's be real. You're here listening to this because whiskey is your thing. But if it's not your thing, you got people with you. Whiskey's not their thing. They've got craft cocktails. They got a golf simulator. They got a food truck. They got the whole package. Now, on first look, I thought, damn, this is sweet. This is a fantastic business model, first of all. Secondly, it just sounds amazing, right? You just go in, you swipe your card, you hit the button, you dispense whatever whiskey strikes your fancy. But then I started thinking, part of the drinking experience is the bartender, right? We've all been there. And sometimes the bartender makes the experience. Okay, sometimes the bartender ruins the experience. That's a fair point. But what happens when we take the bartender out of the equation? I mean, a great bartender isn't just someone who pours drinks. They guide you through your experience. With a whiskey wall, you lose that interaction. And for someone new to whiskey, there's nobody there explaining tasting notes or helping you find what you might like. And there's something special about sitting in a bar chatting with the bartender. The whiskey wall, it's efficient, right? But it makes the process more transactional. You know, you tap your card, you get your pour, you move on. And in a traditional bar encourages conversation, whether it's with the bartender or the person next to you at the bar, whatever. And with a self-serve setup like this, to me, it could feel more like a vending machine type of experience where everybody's kind of focused on their own pour instead of visiting with others. And isn't that what a lot of this is all about? It's visiting with other bourbon drinkers. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like I said, at first glance, I was like, wow, this is badass. I still think it is. It's very cool. But I think like the option of having a bartender, I think you got to have a bartender and a well-trained bartender at that, really, especially when you're talking about bourbon. Look, I love this whiskey wall concept and I love a golf simulator too. But I believe you probably got to have a bartender in the mix as well. I think you got to have that choice. And I think that's where I stand on it. All right, whiskey freaks, we got new releases coming out of every orifice right now. Jack Daniel's, they've introduced their 14-year-old Tennessee whiskey, and it's the oldest age-stated release from the distillery in over 100 years. This whiskey showcases what a little extra time in the barrel can do, said master distiller Chris Fletcher. It's a nod to Jack Daniel's legacy and the age-stated whiskeys of his time. No doubt, this bad boy is bottled at 126.3 proof. And this limited edition whiskey follows Jack Daniel's classic Tennessee whiskey process, the Lincoln County process, of course. This one's 80% corn, 12% malted barley, and 8% rye. They also say the extended maturation brings out rich notes of sweet bakery spices, cinnamon, butterscotch, aged oak, and pipe tobacco. This 14-year-old Tennessee whiskey from Jack Daniel is now available in limited quantities across the country in a 700 milliliter bottle for $149.99. We got a fantastic new release from Woodford Reserve. Now, this one's a badass. Woodford Reserve has released its highest proof bourbon ever, Chocolate Whisper Redux, 139.4 proof. It's part of their distillery series. Now, this 12-year-old version of, okay, let me step back. They put out this Chocolate Redux back in 2021. It was called Chocolate Whisper. It sucked, by the way. This one, they say, brings bold, enhanced flavors thanks to the additional aging in the barrel. So again, at 139.4 proof, it boasts a richer chocolate and coffee profile with tasting notes of chocolate, toasted oak, clove, nutmeg, dark roasted coffee, dried cherry, cranberry, charred oak, and a finish of candied pecan and a partridge in a pear tree. Wow, that's too much. But I have heard good things about it. It'd definitely be worth a try. Now, a little bit about the distillery series. It's kind of the way that the master distillers there at Woodford, they experiment with stuff. They've been doing this for several years. Primarily, the stuff is only available at the Distillery Visitor Center. The Chocolate Redux is available, again, at the distillery and some retailers in Kentucky. I don't know which ones those are, unfortunately. It does come in at $375. And I think all of the distillery releases come in the $375. I got one back, gosh, it was several years ago. It was a 4-grain whiskey from Woodford. It was fantastic, actually, in the $375. Back then, I believe I paid $40 for it. That tells you how long ago it was. But anyway, it was great. I drank it pretty fast. I loved it. Anyway, this $375 is priced at a hefty $99.99. So, new Riff. New Riff is bringing back a favorite. They're re-releasing its Balboa Rye. It's a specialty whiskey, and it's made with their heirloom grains. The rye, which dates back to the 1940s, was once a popular variety in the region and is now distilled exclusively by New Riff. So that's kind of their shtick with the Balboa Rye. This Balboa Rye offering is bottled at 100 proof. It's non-chill filtered, and it has a mash bill of 95% Balboa Rye and 5% malted rye. They say the tasting notes include spiced red fruit, clove, rye bread, black and white pepper, horehound candy, and pink peppercorn. It's a lot going on there. It does sound pretty good, though. We're excited to bring Balboa Rye back in 2025 after a year-long break, said Jay Arisman, co-founder of New Riff. It's been a remarkable journey, and we're proud of the recognition Balboa has earned. It has received multiple awards. It includes, they got Best Rye and Double Gold at the 2020 Barley Corn Awards. They got Double Gold 2021 San Francisco World Spirits. They got Supercalifragilistic at the Southern Illinois Bourbon Festival, whatever. Come on. You know how I feel about these award ceremonies. But anyway, it's probably worth a taste for sure. It looks like Balboa Rye will be available at select retailers online for, this is respectable, $54.99. So decent price, interesting story. It's worth a go. And Diageo, they've got something fresh but very old for us kids. It's called Fanged Pursuit. Fanged, F-A-N-G-E-D, Fanged Pursuit. It's a 17-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon, and it's the latest release from Diageo's Orphan barrel series. It's 92 proof, and they say once it's gone, and that's generally the whole Orphan barrel shtick too, right? Orphan barrels, right? There's not a big bunch of them. The Orphan barrel series was launched back in 2013, and it's included whiskeys from Scotland, Canada, and the United States. But Fanged Pursuit is the first non-chill filtered Kentucky bourbon to join their group. It's a blend, they say, features notes of vanilla bean, nutmeg, allspice, and marmalade, finishing with a sweet cherry cola fade. The 750 milliliter bottle is adorned with a vibrant label showcasing a snarling Kentucky bobcat. The bourbon's mash bill includes 68 to 74% corn. Again, it's a blend, right? 18 to 22% rye and 8 to 10% malted barley. They say it gives it a robust dessert-like flavor profile. It's priced at a whopping $200, but that's pretty much in line with this series anymore. And no way around it, at least for now. Again, maybe in short order, some of this stuff will start coming down, but it's still $200 for this one. Now, I'm a big fan of the Orphan Barrel Rhetoric series back in the day. The 23 years, my favorite. It would be cool to get my hands on this one. If you guys have a chance to try it, Let me know what you think. So I've got some gossip about Buffalo Trace. Okay, it's more like information, right? And I think we're going to be winning with Buffalo Trace, kids. I mean, lots of winning.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I wouldn't kid you guys. Look, I pay close attention to what they do there in Frankfort, Kentucky, because let's face it, whether we like it or not, they're the pace setters right now at Buffalo Trace. Couple of things. First thing is, they've had Blanton's straight from the barrel in the gift shop recently. And that's not a joke. That's not hyperbole. They've also had Elmer T. Lee upstairs at the gift shop recently. You also get the occasional single oak project bottle sprinkled in from time to time. And they've been putting out 375 milliliter bottles of Weller Special Reserve lately, I think for like $13, something like that. And it's kind of the shape and size of, or style, not the size, of like a Knob Creek, but like a smaller Knob Creek, if that makes sense. Oh, the Blantons, straight from the barrel, they were going for $169 at the gift shop. And Elmer T. Lee, oh shit, what was it? I don't remember what the ETL was going for. I think it was $89.99. I am so sorry, I can't remember. I'll have to look that up. But oh yeah, they've also been putting out E.H. Taylor small batch on days with other allocated stuff. So what does that mean? Well, to me, it means thankfully, if you love the stuff Buffalo Trace is putting out, and I like some of it, what this means to me is chances are good that you'll be able to get more easily and without paying through the nose for it here real soon. If you look around, things are loosening up for us guys. I know it's at the expense of the industry and the distilleries, and I know the whole tariffs thing sucks right now and the whiskey glut, but ultimately we're going to benefit. So keep your fingers crossed. And as a nice segue into my next segment, keep your fingers crossed that Eagle Rare 12-year at 95 proof starts coming out soon. I know I talked about that on a previous episode. I'm really hoping that comes to fruition, and if I see it, I'll let you know. I'm headed to the distillery this Friday. I'll report back what I see.
Apologies for this interruption, but we have some breaking news.
Well, actually, it might be breaking news. Soon. Maybe. I promised we'd talk about some things I think will probably be on the way, and that's because I've been monitoring the TTB. The good folks at the TTB. I'm doing the hard work for you guys. Okay, let me explain what the acronym means. The TTB is the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. In government speak, that means it's a U.S. government agency, and the Treasury Department, it regulates and oversees the production, distribution, and labeling of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, because that's a good bunch of stuff to throw together, right? The TTB ensures compliance with legal standards for labeling, advertising, and health warnings. And they also collect federal excise taxes on alcohol, and they enforce the manufacturing and distribution laws. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. They do a bunch of stuff and they collect taxes. Good for them. So you got to forgive me for all the facts today, kids, but the facts matter, and how things happen matters. And believe it or not, most folks have no idea that distillers have to go through all these hoops. So to submit a new bottle label to the TTB, a distillery has to first create the label that meets the federal regulations, including all that information you see on there, like the alcohol content, the brand name, health warning that you see on the back. The label must be clear, accurate, and not misleading. And I think that's kind of funny right there. But anyway, so then the distillery submits the label through the TTB's online yada, yada, yada system, and they upload it in there, and the TTB reviews it. It usually takes them a couple weeks. And if the label meets the requirements, the TTB approves it, and that allows the distillery to use the label on bottles. I say all that to say this. I like to look into the future and kind of get excited about what new stuff might be coming down the pike. So I'm going to share some of the more interesting labels I've seen lately that are most likely coming our way in the near future. So 1792 has an extended cask finished rum expression. They say it's going to come in at 95 proof, and they age it like usual, and then they finish it for 2 additional years in a rum cask. So be on the lookout for that one, guys. Angel's Envy. Angel's Envy is coming out with a new small batch Kentucky straight rye finished in French oak barrels. Now it's going to come in at 92 proof, and it says it's distilled in Kentucky and bottled by Louisville Distilling Company in Louisville. And that means Angel's Envy. So we know Angel's Envy loves to finish damn near everything in something, and I guess this rye will be no exception. They've already got the rye finished in rum, and they've got the ice cider finished stuff and the Mizorana finished, and of course they've got their bourbons finished in sherry and Oloroso and maybe others, blah, blah, blah. It is really hard to keep track of all the things they're finishing things in at Angel's Envy. But suffice it to say, if you pick up Angel's Envy, there's a good chance it was finished in something. Okay, so this one has my attention from Heaven Hill and Elijah Craig. Listen to this one. Now, we know Heaven Hill has been a sponsor of the Ryder Cup golf tournament for several years now, and they're the official bourbon of that event. And this year, 2025, it looks like they're bringing us a special bourbon whiskey to the massive golf event. This one is Elijah Craig small batch Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, but it's finished, get this, with toasted sugar, maple, and apple wood staves. That sounds pretty damn good. It's going to come in at their regular 94 proof, and it's called a limited edition offering, but it's thankfully going to be in the 750 milliliter bottle. So if you love golf, or you don't, or you know somebody who loves golf or don't, somebody who loves Elijah Craig, this one's going to be one to watch for. Now, the thing about it is you're probably going to expect to pay well over a C note for it. I think last year before, that this stuff is running in that range, I think. So not sure where it's going to land as far as price goes, but you might want to pick up some aluminum cans or save the remaining pennies that Trump hasn't yet taken away yet, because this one looks special, but it also is probably going to be expensive. And the last one that really caught my eye that could be coming our way is Starlight Distillery in Indiana. Now, I've reviewed some of their stuff in the past episodes, and you can look back and enjoy one of those sometime. But at Starlight, they're now getting into that single malt craze, and they're bringing us a 10-year-old small batch pot stilled American single malt whiskey. They say Starlight's 10-year-old Indiana Uplands American single malt whiskey. Okay, a couple mouthful there. They say it's crafted from a 100% sweet mash fermentation and meticulously double pot stilled in a copper pot still and aged to perfection in oak casks sourced from around the world. And that's interesting to me. There's no mention of new or American oak specifically. So that's interesting to me. They're talking about oak casks, but that's interesting. So I don't know if that gives them some latitude. Either way, 10 years old, Starlight sounds intriguing to me. Starlight is a solid distiller. I think Ted Huber just got some big award the other day. They're doing great work out at Starlight. It's a great place to visit if you ever get a chance. If you're in Louisville at the other distilleries, it's not that far from Louisville to shoot up to Starlight. Anyway, check out my episode from last year on Starlight, and there's much more about what they've got going on there. Of course, there's no guarantee these distillers will ever use the label here that I've talked about today. That's my disclaimer, my legal disclaimer. Now, they're probably going to use them. I mean, think about it. What's the point of wasting all the time and energy and money to create a label and send it through and jump through the hoops if you're not going to use it? I mean, that's my logic anyway. So be on the lookout for that stuff. Well, whiskey freaks, let's get to the fun part now, my review. Today, I'm cracking open another whiskey from the Lone Star State. I've got Still Austin Straight Bourbon Whiskey, the Musician, right here in my hot little hands. Kind of strange, right? The Musician. Anyway, more on that in just a minute. But first, a bit of history. And you know how it goes here on Blind Tasting Podcast, 2 minutes or so of learning, and then we get to tasting. So the history. Still Austin Whiskey Company was founded in 2015 in Austin, Texas, as a grain-to-glass distillery, meaning they handle the entire whiskey making process right there on site, from the milling of the grain to the bottling to the final product. And it was the first whiskey distillery in the city since Prohibition there in Austin. Now, the distillery sources, and they're very proud of this part of the equation, they source non-GMO white corn, Elbin rye, and malted barley from Texas farmers. Everything comes from Texas. They use a 42-foot custom column still that they've named Nancy for distillation. Very strange. The whiskey is aged in new charred oak barrels with Texas hot climate, accelerating that aging process. So everything is about Texas. The Musician, it's their first widely available release. It came out back in 2020. They've since expanded their lineup. I think they have a cask strength and a couple others, but this is the first. And again, they focus on Texas-grown ingredients and on-site production. Now, the mash bill. Again, I talked about the non-GMO corn. The mash bill is 70% non-GMO white corn, sourced from Texas, 25% Elbin rye, grown in Texas, and they say it's known for its rich, spicy character, 5% wildfire malted barley, and they say that helps with fermentation and it adds some sweetness, and again, all from the Lone Star State. So I wanted to learn. Crazy, right? So I looked up what exactly the hell is Elbin rye. And here's what I found. They say compared to other rye varieties, Elbin rye tends to have a bold, earthy spice with notes of black pepper, baking spices, and a hint of nuttiness. It contributes to a rich, complex backbone in whiskey. That's what the experts say. So I'm excited to see if any of those flavors is prevalent here or pronounced here in the Musician. Keep in mind, this is only 2 years old, so not sure what we're going to find in here, even if we kind of rely on the Elbin rye. We're going to find out soon enough, though. Like I just mentioned, the age is 2 years old, and it's aged in new charred oak barrels. Now, the proof. Because everybody has to be different, evidently, it comes in at 98.4 proof. Maybe that's a Texas radio station. I don't know. But 98.4 proof because I don't know. Now, the price. The price is interesting as well because they are charging $45 for the Still Austin, the Musician, on their website. And I can, interestingly enough, go right down here to my guy here in town. He also has it for the same price right here in Illinois. So pretty much, I'm guessing it's about $45. Now, the bottle. Sometimes I talk about, sometimes bottles are cool. And in this case, the bottle is cool. And if you're into art and fancy pants designs, you're in luck with the Musician. The artwork was created by Mark Burkhart, and he's a prominent Texas artist. Again, the focus on Texas. And the art features a surreal folk art-inspired depiction of a female musician. Get it? She's a woman with flowing red hair, and she's wearing a blue outfit playing an acoustic guitar. The bottle itself has a tall, elegant kind of shape with a natural wood and cork stopper. And that, kids, that lets you know it's handcrafted. Anyway, overall, the good folks at Still Austin believe that the design reflects creativity and artistry behind the bourbon, aligning with the focus on craftsmanship and Austin's deep musical roots. Yeah, that's true. Austin, it's Austin City Limits. I think we've all watched that from time to time. So it's cool. It's got a cool shtick. It's got a cool story. You can't miss the bottle on the shelf. It is definitely a different approach than, say, Beam or, Old Forest or just about any other whiskey maker, really. If a cool bottle is what you need or you're into art, then this fits the bill quite nicely. Now, I took a glance at their website, and here we go with the shtick, right? You know, this cracks me up. This is the word salad that our good friends at Still Austin have to say about the Musician. Music has the ability to bring us all closer together, to make us feel more free and alive. So does great whiskey. When a musician combines chords, rhythms, and harmonies, the result taps into something deep inside us. This is more than just distilled corn, rye, and barley. This is music in a bottle. But wait, there's more. Like Austin, this bourbon is original and inclusive. It's crafted with patience, ingenuity, and our 42-foot still Nancy, which is very strange. It embodies community, creativity, and above all, great flavor. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with here with the folks at Still Austin. kind of some gobbledygook to me. And it looks like their marketing team is working overtime to baffle us with some bullshit. I mean, sounds like it to me, right? So I want to find out if their big, bad, super still Nancy and their inclusive attitude, I want to see if that stuff's going to produce good whiskey. First, I just want to say, I've got a big announcement. We've topped 8 million listeners now on the pod. Okay, no, we have not topped 800 million listeners on the pod. But I do want to thank everybody who's subscribed on Apple and YouTube. It means a lot. There's a ton of you from all across the country, all 50 states, and the world, from the United Kingdom to Germany to France to all over the Sweden. Anyway, please make sure you subscribe so as soon as a new episode drops, you get it right then. Look, it means a lot to me that you spend your time with me learning and tasting. And really, we're just here being honest about whiskey and the whiskey world. We got no bullshit here. And I buy my own whiskey for tasting, and I give you the truth from my heart. Oh, and fun fact, if you say the magic words to your device, in my case, I have an Amazon device, she'll serve up the latest episode of the pod for you straight away. So do it. Say the word to her and enjoy. Here, watch this. Alexa, play Blind Tasting Podcast.
Getting Blind Tasting Podcast from Amazon Music. Here's Season 2, Episode 10, Emergency Episode. Walcott Rickhouse Reserve Straight Bourbon Whiskey Review.
Alexa, stop. It works. I'm telling you the truth. So anyway, subscribe. Do it now. And I'm telling you, if you subscribe, the bourbon gods are going to shine down on you forever. So today I'm tasting with a Glencairn, my favorite limestone branch Glencairn, actually. And I'm going to get right after it here. Let me go ahead and crack this open. Shit. Got some on my hand. Well, that's pretty good. So the first thing I talk about when I pour whiskey into my Glencairn is the color. And I always tell you this, never judge the color by the bottle. The whiskey in the bottle, right? Bottles are different shapes, different sizes. They've got different labels. The labels are different colors. And sometimes even the glass of the bottle is a different hue or color. So you got to pour it into a Glencairn to really evaluate it. And you need to have good lights. I'm down here. I've got a couple lights on me here, almost like I'm in a CIA interrogation room. So I can get a really good look at this whiskey. And all right. I feel like I'm a broken record here sometimes, and I say this: the color of the whiskey sometimes gives you an idea of the breadth of flavors you're about to put in your mouth. That's my opinion. It's not everybody's opinion, but the darker the hue of the whiskey in your glass, the deeper the flavors are going to be. It's not always true, but it is sometimes. It's worth noting, and I'm going to say it every single time. So the color on this one, it's like a golden amber color, I would say. Think like honey, like a good organic, real honey. You might see this kind of honey maybe at the farmer's market, which reminds me, I need to ask my wife when the farmer's market's opening here in Edwardsville. Really want to head up there when it does. It should be soon. So anyway, there are a couple different kinds of honey. There's wildflower honey, and that's a little darker hue. Think more like a clover honey, which it's slightly lighter in color. That's this golden amber color. Anyway, honey, I think honey is the best way I can describe it here. And we know this is at least 2 years old, but you can clearly tell it's not been in the barrel for a ton of time, and that makes sense. Let me nose this real quick. Yeah, I am loving that. It's very sweet, great sweet aroma right off the bat, and there's absolutely zero alcohol. Remember, it's 98.4 for some reason. Sometimes you get up into that range, you're going to get some of that alcohol. I am not getting anything on the nose. It's very inviting. Primarily what I'm getting is a light honey aroma. It's kind of mixed with Yeah, I would say like a brown sugar and maybe a tinge of like herbalness, like a pine. So I do not care for herbal or pine, like evergreen or any of that. I cannot stand that tasting note in my whiskey. Here on the nose, it's very, very subtle. And I'm hoping, and I'm really kind of praying that this note doesn't carry over real strong into the taste. We'll find out soon enough. Let me get another sniff here. Yeah, so I'm moving it around in the glass a little bit too. There's a little bit of sweet hay on the nose. It's nice. Overall, the nose is great. Let me get a sip and see if the musician makes me feel more free and alive, like the marketing folks say it will. Okay, well, shoot. Well, first, let me tell you about the legs. I just told you I was swirling it in the glass and trying to get some more notes out of it. Well, the legs are very thin. And remember, we talked about the legs in a previous episode. I know most of you guys know what I mean, but real quick, let's talk some science. The legs in whiskey. It is not a ZZ Top song. By the way, ZZ Top also being from Texas, not applicable here today. The legs in whiskey are the streaks or the drips that form on the inside of the glass when you swirl it around, after you swirl it. Like when the swirl stops, what hangs on the edge of the glass inside. And they happen because of the alcohol and the oils in the whiskey. The legs or lack thereof, well, it can tell you about the whiskey's viscosity and the texture. If you got thicker, slower moving legs, that often indicates a higher viscosity. Sometimes you're going to get a richer, fuller bodied whiskey. Thin, fast-moving legs generally point to a lighter texture and lower viscosity. So things that determine the legs are things like the proof, the age, the oils and sugars it retains during the process of distillation. And so one of the reasons I prefer a non-chill filtered whiskey is it retains more of those oils and that good stuff, which in many cases can give you nice legs, and sometimes you're going to get more complex flavors. So still Austin the musician, it's non-chill filtered, but I don't see a lot of that carrying over to the legs. Let me get a sip here and see what this stuff's all about. Okay, well, yeah, it's thin. Not much positive to say about the mouthfeel either. It's pleasant enough. I get a nice sweetness right away, like a nice caramel. And that caramel that I'm getting, it's not like some other high rye bourbons I've tried before where you get a fake sugar or like artificial sweetener flavor. This is real deliciousness. And I'm getting that honey note I found on the nose too. It's very prominent, very pleasant. Let me get another sip. Okay. Yeah, there's a bit of light citrus in here too, which it adds to the complexity. It's very complementary to the notes that I've already encountered, and I like that. You guys remember I reviewed Ancient Age versus Blanton's, and that was last year. I don't remember what episode it was, but got a lot of listens, a lot of views. That Ancient Age was giving off some citrusy notes too, but in a weird kind of sour way, and that's not this. I'm getting smooth vibes here with the musician as it relates to that light citrusy note. So very, very nice. Let me get one more sip. Yeah, there's a smidge of oak in here too. A gentle, smooth oak. Again, there's no roughness going on. And I'm really getting a peppery spice note here too. It's strong. And I think it's probably has something to do with that super high rye that's in here. That's probably responsible for that kind of peppery pop. I gotta get one more sip. Okay. So the finish of this one. It's dry and it's fast. It's really kind of gone in a heartbeat. And it's 2 years old, right? So not sure how much finish I should really be expecting here. I think the lack of time in the barrel kind of shows through. really strongly, at least here on the finish for sure. All right, whiskey freaks, let's be real. This podcast ain't free to make. And my wife, well, she's got questions about where all the money's going. So if you've ever enjoyed an episode here on the Blind Tasting Podcast and thought, man, this guy deserves a drink, well, now here's your chance. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/blindtastingpodcast. Toss a few bucks in the tip jar. It'll keep the podcast rolling, and it helps me prove to my wife that somebody out there thinks this was a good idea. Thanks for the support, whiskey freaks. That's buymeacoffee.com/blindtastingpodcast. Just a buck or two if you love what you're hearing. So appreciated, guys. Cheers to all of you. Now let's get back to the bourbon. So what's the verdict? Well, we know on the Blind Tasting Podcast there are 3 verdict possibilities. Are we going to keep it, collect it, or cull it? To keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar. This stuff's good for a pour anytime, but there's really no need to stock up on it since it's always available. Collect it. Grab another bottle or 2, since you find it so darn delicious, or it just may not be easy to obtain. And lastly, cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Still Austin the musician, straight bourbon whiskey, I say, keep it. All right, I always feel like I need to clarify what I mean here. This one's a keep it, but there's varying degrees of keep it, right? This one is worth a try, and if you buy it, don't dump it out, okay? It's a good whiskey at 30 doll hairs. But remember, this was $45 for a 2-year-old whiskey with a fun-looking bottle. The proof point is great at almost 100, 98.4. But I'd like to see what another year in the bottle would do for it. Now, I love the nose. I'm still loving the nose. It's so nice. But the palate was just okay. I'd call it acceptable. And the finish was not much of a finish, really. I'm going to bet at 3 or better yet, 4 years old, this stuff would rock the house. A real showstopper. But as it stands now, it's just okay. And it's not okay for the money. I've tasted a lot of young whiskey over the years. And one such time was when I was lucky enough to grab a bottle of the first whiskey that Bluegrass Distillers put out. It was super young. And it was, okay. Anyway, I bought a t-shirt and I got a bottle signed and I took it home. I'm not sure how lucky I really was to get it and try it. But anyway, it was young. It was no bueno. This musician's not like that. It's not crap. It's good. It's decent. And if you're looking for a whiskey that smells really great, that's got a super cool bottle, well, you found it here. Now, maybe a newbie, or if you got a buddy just starting their whiskey journey, this would maybe be a good entry point. It's approachable, and I hate that word. I hate approachable. I hate that word, but here I am saying it. But that's what it is. It's approachable. I know that's a kind of generic way to say things, but it's really the word I've got best to describe. My only barrier here is the price. Now, I've seen plenty of bourbon dipshits on the internets calling this stuff groundbreaking and epic. Yeah, it's not that. Is the artwork cool? Sure. Is it a great story? Absolutely, bruh. But I'm not collecting bottles for their looks. I'm drinking what's inside the bottle. Look, you can find 1,000 other bourbons under $45 that do a better job. But hey, if you're into vibes and super inclusive branding, or you truly believe the marketing hype that this is music in a bottle, then by all means, go for it. Me, I'm going to hold on to my bottle and check back when they age their bourbon a little bit longer. And if it's still $45, maybe I'll give it another shot. Until then, my advice to you, just try it at a buddy's house or have a pour at a bar before you drop the cash on a full bottle. Our good friends at Still Austin say, they say it's music in a bottle, right? But let's be real. This one's more like a cover band to me than a rock icon. This ain't Aerosmith. Let's give them some time. Let's pray they age it a little bit longer and check back in on this one in a couple years. So I got big news. Okay, well, it's kind of cool anyway. I made my way out to the Ben Holiday Distillery in Weston, Missouri last week, and that's out by Kansas City. I was lucky enough to pick up some of their Ancient Cave Collection whiskey. Now, if you listen to the pod, you know I've mentioned this stuff several times in recent history. So check out the pod next week when I review a super exclusive but reasonably priced Ancient Cave selection right here in a Splash and Dash episode of the Blind Tasting Podcast. Last but not least, as always, I got to give a shout out to the farmers, the distillery production guys and gals, the warehouse workers, the bottlers, and the truck drivers, because they're the ones that make it happen. So cheers to all of them. Well, that's all I've got for today, Whiskey Freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your #1 attitudinal bourbon destination.